The man accused of dispatching assassins to murder Captain Ibrahim Traore while hiding out in Togo is now waking up to the cold, hard reality of a prison cell. And let me assure you, the legal and political nightmare has essentially just begun for Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Pay close attention, because the events that unfolded on January 20th, 2026 represent the kind of justice that restores your faith in divine intervention. We are talking about the very same man who has been orchestrating death and destruction from the safety and comfort of his exile. This is the same coward accused of paying soldiers to plant explosives in government buildings, the traitor who was willing to see Burkina Faso reduced to ashes just so he could reclaim the throne. That fugitive is now firmly in the custody of Captain Traoré, and brothers and sisters, there are absolutely no places left for him to run. Let me set the scene for you. It is January 16th, 2026 in the city of Lome, Togo. Damiba is likely sleeping soundly, fully confident that his Togolese protectors will shield him as he continues his relentless campaign of terror against Burkina Faso. For over 3 years, he has enjoyed a life of privilege, plotting, scheming, and paying off mercenaries and traitors with foreign funds to destabilize his own homeland. Suddenly, that comfortable life shatters when security forces knock on his door to deliver an arrest warrant. Within a matter of hours, he is standing before the Lome Court of Appeal, and in just one day he is handed over to Burkina Faso authorities like a common criminal. The extradition that Damiba likely arrogantly thought would never happen, a prospect he probably mocked and laughed about, while sipping expensive wine funded by the shadowy figures bankrolling his treachery, has instantly transformed into his worst nightmare. The Minister of Justice for Togo read the official statement on public television, delivering the news in a tone that was cold, professional, and matter-of-fact. Damiba was arrested and subsequently surrendered to the authorities of Burkina Faso, following an extradition request made on January 12th for incitement to the commission of offences and crimes. When they say incitement to offences and crimes, understand that this is polite diplomatic language for the horrific reality of what this man actually did. We are speaking of orchestrating murder, funding terrorism against his own people, and attempting to assassinate a sitting head of state on multiple occasions. Can you even begin to imagine the sheer panic that must have seized him in that moment? The man who believed he was untouchable is suddenly being driven across the border to face the very leader he tried to kill. The hunter has become the prey. Now allow me to take you back to January 3rd, 2026, a mere 17 days prior to Damiba's arrest. Brothers and sisters, the details uncovered on that night are disturbing enough to make your skin crawl. Captain Ibrahim Traore came within inches of being murdered in a plot so sophisticated, so well-funded, and so diabolical that it could have destroyed Burkina Faso entirely. At around 11 post-meridian Greenwich Mean Time, Burkina Faso intelligence arrested the mastermind of a coup plot that had been orchestrated from Lome, Togo, straight from Damiba's location. And when investigators searched this individual's mobile phone, what they discovered was evidence so damning and absolutely compromising that it left zero doubt regarding who was pulling the strings. They found audio recordings, voice messages, and strategic plans laid out in shocking, undeniable detail. The voice identified on those recordings was allegedly Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba himself, discussing how to sabotage Burkina Faso's military drones, the very assets protecting the country from jihadist terrorists, so the armed forces would be crippled. Within these captured recordings, this traitor allegedly expressed his confidence that once the explosions started and the assassinations began, the Burkina Faso people would be too shocked and traumatized to resist. He was betting on their paralysis. He was gambling everything on their fear. But here is the part where your jaw should drop. This was not some amateur operation run on pocket change. It is alleged that Damiba funneled over $125,000 to $128,000 to the conspirators. In a country where the average person struggles to make a few dollars a day, this traitor was throwing around more money than most Burkina Faso citizens will see in a lifetime. All of that wealth was deployed for one singular purpose: to buy the death of their president. $128,000 to fund murder, to buy explosions, and to purchase treason. Just think about what that money could have done if used for good. It could have built schools, hospitals, wells, and food supplies. Instead, it was blood money meant to turn Ouagadougou into a graveyard. Let me paint you the full picture of what was supposed to happen on January 3rd, 2026, because you need to understand how close Burkina Faso came to catastrophe. Phase 1 was to assassinate Captain Ibrahim Traore. The goal was not just to kill him, but to make it brutal, public, and symbolic. The plotters wanted his blood to send terrifying shockwaves through the nation. Phase 2 involved the simultaneous murder of key military commanders and civilian government officials. They intended to create a leadership vacuum so total that nobody would know who was in charge, resulting in pure, uncontrolled chaos. Phase 3 was to destroy the drones that Burkina Faso's military relies on to track and eliminate jihadist terrorists. These are not just machines, brothers and sisters. They are the technological edge that has allowed Traoré's forces to turn the tide against extremism. Without them, the military would be fighting blind, and the jihadists would run wild across the country, slaughtering civilians with impunity. Finally, Phase 4 was to storm and seize control of vital strategic positions. Strategic government nerve centers across Ouagadougou, including the parliament-building military command headquarters, critical communication hubs, and the central banking infrastructure, were all targeted to fall in a single synchronized offensive. The ultimate objective behind this operation was to engineer a state of absolute and total systemic disintegration, leaving the citizenry so paralyzed by fear, so utterly confused, and so demoralized that they would offer no resistance when Damiba's faction emerged to claim they were re-establishing stability. It is the exact same Machiavellian strategy that authoritarian figures have utilized for generations to seize power. Manufacture a catastrophic emergency, and then step into the spotlight posing as the heroic rescuer. However, there is a specific detail in this revelation that should ignite righteous fury in every single Burkinabe. Intelligence reports indicate that several individuals implicated in this treacherous conspiracy were active duty soldiers specifically detailed to the personal security detail of Captain Traoré. We are speaking of his own Praetorian Guard men who stood shoulder to shoulder with him daily, possessing intimate knowledge of his itinerary, his secure movements, and his rare moments of vulnerability. The very personnel sworn to lay down their lives for the president were, according to allegations, plotting to extinguish it. Just consider the sheer magnitude of that duplicity. Picture yourself presiding over a high-level briefing encircled by troops you regard as faithful patriots, all the while harboring the chilling realization that one of them could be waiting for the perfect split second to assassinate you. This represents the relentless psychological siege that Captain Traoré has been forced to navigate every single day since assuming the mantle of leadership. Now, fellow observers, we must address the elephant in the room. The inquiry that is being murmured in shadows but rarely vocalized on the world stage: exactly who is bankrolling this operation. Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba has been living in exile since October 2022. He is not currently operating a legitimate enterprise. He is not overseeing a portfolio of high-yield investments, nor is he clocking in for a standard 9-to-5 profession. He stands as a deposed former head of state, residing within foreign borders, reliant on the hospitality of others for his livelihood. So, where on earth did he procure $125,000 to finance a military insurrection? Furthermore, that figure represents only the confirmed funds linked specifically to this singular failed plot. Since September of 2022, Captain Traoré has survived a series of repeated attempts on his life. Every single one of those operations requires significant capital funds for advanced weaponry, secure communication arrays, safe houses, logistical transport, and the bribes necessary to turn loyalists into traitors. We are realistically looking at expenditures totaling hundreds of thousands, potentially even millions of dollars, all burned in a bid to liquidate one man and plunge a nation into anarchy. Capital of that magnitude inevitably has an origin, and that origin invariably has an agenda. Allow me to pose some deeply unsettling queries. Who stands to reap the rewards if Captain Ibrahim Traoré is eliminated? Who profits if Burkina Faso spirals into uncontrollable civil disorder? Which entities benefit if this bold endeavor toward true African autonomy and self-governance collapses tragically in a violent bloodbath? Could it be the French establishment observing with anxiety as their former colonial territory expels their military forces, insists on equitable mining deals, and forges new strategic alliances with Russia and other global powers? a nation that has for far too long operated under the assumption that Francophone Africa exists merely as its personal backyard for unchecked resource extraction. Or perhaps it is the multinational mining conglomerates seething with rage because Burkina Faso is rewriting the rulebook on gold and mineral extraction to guarantee that the nation's natural wealth uplifts the Burkina Faso population, rather than simply padding the portfolios of foreign investors. Could the culprits be neighboring regional powers who interpret Traoré's Pan-Africanist philosophy and his impassioned pleas for continental solidarity and independence as a viral contagion that threatens to destabilize their own grip on power? Or are we looking at global hegemons who perceive any African head of state refusing to kneel as an existential threat to the geopolitical hierarchy they dominate? While I will not cast specific accusations without concrete proof, I urge you to adhere to the golden rule of investigation: follow the money trail. Always track the currency. Damiba certainly did not finance these insurrection attempts using his retirement savings. An entity with substantial financial reserves and nefarious intent has been underwriting this campaign of terror. And rest assured, when Damiba begins to cooperate during his interrogation, and make no mistake, he will sing. We are going to uncover precisely who has been attempting to strangle African sovereignty while it is still in its infancy. At this precise second, there are individuals scattered across Burkina Faso who are gripped by absolute panic. The network of co-conspirators, deep-cover sleeper agents, informants, compromised military officers who accepted Damiba's bribes, civilian intelligence assets, and the logistical facilitators. Every single one of them understands the implications of Damiba's detention. They know their identities are on the verge of public exposure. When state intelligence operatives confiscated the ringleader's mobile device on January 3rd, they recovered far more than just voice memos from Damiba. They uncovered a treasure trove of data contact lists, chat logs, wire transfer records, clandestine meeting coordinates, aliases, and the complete architecture of the treasonous network preserved in digital formats that are impossible to refute or dismiss. It is highly likely that several of these plotters have already fled Burkina Faso, deserting their duties under the cover of darkness and speeding toward border crossings to plead for sanctuary before authorities come knocking. Others remain behind, frantically incinerating sensitive files, smashing hard drives, and wiping mobile devices in a futile attempt to scrub evidence that has likely already been archived on government surveillance servers. However, a select few, the most volatile elements of this group, may be plotting a reckless final move. This could manifest as a suicidal last stand, to either break Damiba out of custody before he confesses, or to silence him permanently so their involvement remains buried. The upcoming weeks will define a critical juncture for the security apparatus of Burkina Faso. As the saying goes, a wounded beast is never more lethal than when it is trapped. Captain Traoré's trusted lieutenants are acutely aware of this reality. There is no victory lap just yet. They remain vigilant, monitoring every signal, because right now every communication is being intercepted. Intelligence agencies are currently monitoring every anomaly with eagle-eyed precision. Associates linked to Damiba are being watched around the clock for the simple reason that this conspiracy extends far beyond a single detention. It acts like a cancer, metastasizing and evolving into new threats. The burning question on everyone's mind remains just how deeply rooted is this network of betrayal. We must ask how many individuals holding key positions of authority have been compromised. How many uniformed soldiers and high-ranking government officials have turned against the state? Furthermore, how many titans of industry have accepted illicit foreign capital to destabilize the very nation they call home? The interrogation of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba is poised to expose secrets and reopen old wounds that the elite have desperately tried to keep concealed from the public eye. We need to be starkly realistic about the gravity of the situation facing the former leader now that he is in Burkina Faso custody. This is not a case of garden variety treason. The allegations suggest he did not merely plan a one-off coup d'etat. Rather, he is accused of masterminding a series of assassination attempts targeting Captain Ibrahim Traore. Reports indicate he financed missions aimed at obliterating vital military assets, all while Burkina Faso is locked in a life-or-death struggle against jihadist insurgencies. He is charged with subverting the loyalty of troops sworn to defend their commander-in-chief, effectively transforming guardians of the state into potential assassins. In the vast majority of nations across the African continent, and indeed throughout most of the world, crimes of this magnitude would lead to immediate extrajudicial consequences. We are talking about a summary military tribunal lasting barely 60 minutes, concluding with a firing squad before the sun goes down. There would be no avenue for appeal and zero leniency, only the grim, unyielding certainty that those who betray their country face the ultimate penalty. However, Captain Traoré has consistently portrayed himself as a statesman of a different caliber, adhering to a separate code of conduct. His rhetoric consistently emphasizes the rule of law, the construction of enduring institutions that survive their founders, and the establishment of transparent governance worthy of the public's trust. If his commitment to these principles is genuine, then Damiba must be afforded a trial in the public sphere. This cannot be mere political theatre. It must be a legitimate legal proceeding, where evidence is scrutinized, the defense is heard, and the Burkina Faso citizens witness precisely who turned against them and the motives behind it. Conducting a judicial process of this nature would be in and of itself a revolutionary act. Visualize the impact of live testimony, classified documents, and audio intercepts presented in open court alongside financial ledgers, tracing illicit funds from foreign entities intended to fuel terror against the state of Burkina Faso. Imagine the exposure of co-conspirators named under oath and the laying bare of international links for the entire world to scrutinize. This proceeding would undoubtedly stand as the trial of the century for West Africa, offering a rare opportunity for the nation to dissect the mechanics of 21st century neocolonialism in painstaking detail. It reveals that modern subjugation is not achieved through foreign administrators or blatant military occupation, but rather through compromised local agents who are willing to mortgage their people's future in exchange for foreign currency. Yet we must remain grounded in the harsh realities of human nature and the volatile landscape of regional politics. Damiba is accused of attempting to assassinate Traoré on several occasions. Intelligence suggests he formulated plans to detonate explosives within key government facilities. He is suspected of undermining counterterrorism initiatives, implying that the blood of Burkina Faso soldiers and civilians is on his hands. These are not theoretical offenses. These acts are deeply personal, visceral, and soaked in violence. Regardless of Damiba's fate within the confines of his prison cell, be it due process or a grimmer outcome, it is unlikely that the people of Burkina Faso will mourn him. As the saying goes, reckless actions yield reckless consequences. When one attempts to liquidate a head of state repeatedly, one should not expect clemency from the target of those attacks. Fellow citizens, it is imperative to grasp the significance of this moment. The apprehension of Damiba represents a monumental strategic victory. However, the conflict is nowhere near its conclusion. Captain Ibrahim Traore continues to confront massive existential dangers threatening both his administration and his very survival. We must acknowledge that the revolutionary path he has chosen does not enjoy universal support within the country. The entrenched aristocracy families who amassed fortunes under prior administrations by acting as conduits for external exploitation perceive Traoré as a cataclysmic danger to their accumulated wealth and status. They are desperate to restore the ancien regime, a system that allowed them to siphon off millions whilst the general population faced starvation. International powers long used to manipulating compliant African figureheads view Traoré as a volatile maverick who steadfastly refuses to adhere to their geopolitical script. He has expelled French military forces and is actively restructuring the terms of resource extraction and mining agreements. He is forging strategic alliances with Russia, Turkey, and other non-Western entities, championing African sovereignty and Pan-African unity moves that terrify the neo-colonial establishment. To them, he is far more than a mere irritation. He represents a fundamental threat to the integrity of their entire exploitative system. We can expect further coup attempts, additional assassination conspiracies, and a continued influx of foreign capital designed to incentivize local treachery. The adversaries of true African independence possess patience, deep pockets, and total ruthlessness, and they are committed to a long-term strategy. They will meticulously analyze the failures of Damiba's schemes and adjust their methodologies accordingly. Future attempts might bypass interceptable digital channels or involve the recruitment of operatives who are significantly more difficult to profile and detect. They may shift focus from military putches to economic warfare, orchestrating food scarcity, currency collapse, or power grid failures to incite public unrest against Traoré. While their tactical approach will undoubtedly evolve, their ultimate objective remains static. Their mission is to depose Captain Ibrahim Traoré by whatever means required and reinstall a puppet regime subservient to external command. It is for this precise reason that Traoré cannot permit himself even a fleeting second of complacency. While soaring rhetoric and massive rallies set the stage, they are insufficient on their own. The administration faces the critical imperative of translating revolutionary zeal into concrete, tangible improvements for the daily lives of the citizenry. We are talking about the fundamentals of statehood, guaranteeing security against the scourge of jihadist insurgency, creating robust economic pathways so families can put food on the table, and revitalizing essential services like functional schools, hospitals, and critical infrastructure. Ultimately, this revolution will be judged by its metrics of success, not its slogans, and we must confront a stark and undeniable reality regarding the road ahead. Should the standard of living fail to rise for the average Burkinabe, should high-minded promises remain hollow, or should the cancer of corruption be allowed to metastasize, the current wave of popular support will inevitably begin to recede. And if that political capital is exhausted, the outcome of the next destabilization attempt might be far different. It might not fail. However, there is a profound development unfolding within Burkina Faso that offers genuine cause for optimism, a phenomenon that strikes deeper fear into the heart of the neo-colonial establishment than any conventional military or economic threat. The citizenry has undergone a fundamental transformation. The people themselves have internalized the revolution and become its primary agents. Whenever reports surface regarding plots against Captain Ibrahim Traoré, we witness an immediate reaction where thousands upon thousands of Burkinabe citizens mobilize. They flood the public squares not in panic or to seek refuge, but to actively defend their head of state and the integrity of their movement, physically surrounding strategic military installations. These patriots effectively form living barricades, sending an unequivocal message to any would-be usurpers the path to power requires going through the population itself. This dynamic proves that the leadership is not sustained by foreign bayonets, nor does it govern through the apparatus of fear and repression. On the contrary, this is an administration whose mandate and legitimacy are derived directly from the authentic support and deep-seated affection of the populace. And make no mistake, that specific brand of organic political power is arguably the most resilient and difficult force in the world to dismantle. We are seeing the women of Burkina Faso organizing into a highly responsive revolutionary cadre, capable of mobilizing across the nation in a matter of hours. A generation of youth previously educated yet left languishing in unemployment and despair under prior administrations has now identified a future that they deem worthy of relentless struggle. Within the armed forces themselves, despite the lingering presence of subversive elements, a significant majority remains deeply committed to the strategic trajectory set by Captain Traoré. This reservoir of popular energy constitutes Captain Traoré's most valuable strategic asset and serves as his most impenetrable defensive shield. So long as he nurtures this bond, continues to deliver on key performance indicators for the common man, and remains tethered to their daily struggles and highest aspirations, his removal remains a near statistical impossibility. Former leader Damiba discovered this reality through a harsh lesson: one may possess all the foreign capital available globally, but that currency cannot purchase the organic legitimacy that Traoré commands. It is the fierce protective loyalty of the citizenry that makes the difference. And there is another layer to this narrative that renders it even more extraordinary. In the face of relentless assassination plots, coordinated destabilization campaigns, immense foreign diplomatic pressure, and internal sabotage, Captain Ibrahim Traoré continues to drive the systemic transformation of Burkina Faso. While the revolutionary process advances, the existential threats lurking in the shadows have not dissipated. However, marking this date of January 20th, 2026, the scales of justice have tipped significantly. The narrative has flipped, the hunter has become the hunted, and the traitor now stands in chains. Across the length and breadth of Burkina Faso, citizens are walking with renewed pride, bolstered by the knowledge that those who commit treason against the nation will inevitably face severe repercussions. A luta continua. The struggle continues, and today marks a significant tactical victory in that ongoing war for sovereignty. The continent of Africa is in ascendance, and no volume of foreign-financed coups d'etats can halt this historical momentum.